Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's C-O-M-B-E-S-T, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?
Hi, it's me, Egbert, E-G-G-B-U-R-T, the owner of this radio station. I invite everyone to listen, no matter if you're young, old, black, white, Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, heck, I even want real estate agents listening to my station. Yes, even Rick and Tracy. You're all welcome. Now, it's back to my Goodwill ambassadors, Brad and John.
And we have our own website. You can check out bjshow.co. John, I think that's like 3 or 4 shows I've done that in a row that I've gotten right.
You're the Cal Ripken of reading domain names, Brad.
I'm knocking them out of the park. Okay. Steve Ellman. Do you know the story with him in the news the last couple of days?
Is this his refusal to engage in the kabuki theater that is a crime summit? Is that what this is, Brad?
You put it so well, John. Yes. This is the, RCGA? This is the...
Hey, they're not RCGA anymore. They are the St. Louis's Safe Minus Homicides and Car Accidents and Car Break-Ins Association.
Well, isn't this part of the regional commerce, or what do they call it now?
Yeah, whatever. It's not RCGA anymore, but it's something.
Okay.
Whatever they're rebranded as.
Steve Ellman and Toshira Jones have been going back and forth with what you call, they officially called it the Crime Summit, didn't they?
Yeah. I think it's a regional crime summit. So which suggests, by the way, by name, it suggests that other county executives want to have anything to do with this.
Well, I mean, in full disclosure here, I am starting an organization, have been doing it for a while, called Westplex.com. And the concept of Westplex.com is that in St. Charles County, we have 8 communities, which are essentially the majority, I think like 90 to 95% of the population in St. Charles County. Because once you get outside of what used to be the old Golden Triangle, and I'm talking St. Charles, St. Peters, Weldon Spring, Cottleville, Wentzville, Lake St. Louis, O'Fallon, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Once you get outside of that area, the population is pretty thin. I mean, especially if you go up into the northeast section of St. Charles County, where you have Mockins and place like that, where there aren't too many people who live up there. And the same situation once you get south of Highway 40, although that's changing with some developers that are coming south of Highway 40. But for the most part, the majority of population lies north of Highway 40. And if you go back to the old days when they called it the Golden Triangle, the triangle was a triangle on its tippy top. So essentially you had 70 across the sort of an inverted pyramid. You had 70 across the top. You had 94, now 364, 94, sort of like at a 45-degree angle to the east. And then you had on the west side, you had 40, 61 to the southwest. And if you look at that, that's the Golden Triangle. And majority of the population is within that Golden Triangle, what I call the Westplex. And the idea being, and this is the thing that I've said to several people, and when you say this, it's sort of, they go like, well, really? If you would take the population of the Westplex, those communities, it's over 400,000 people now. It makes the 47th largest city in the country. It puts us between Minneapolis and Tulsa. Okay, we would fit right in the middle there, and Tulsa would drop back to number 48, and Minneapolis would remain at 46, and it would make us the second largest city in the state of Missouri behind Kansas City, because we've eclipsed, at least the Westplex has eclipsed, St. Louis City by 6 digits now. We're 100,000 plus more people in the Westplex. And the thing that I'm not on board with Steve Ellman and also with Mike Elam, maybe we need to get Mike Elam on here sometime because he's very much a part of this. He's on that same board. They're essentially saying we are identified as part of St. Louis. So we have to get St. Louis to clean up its act. Otherwise, the whole area sort of gets, whitewashed with the same, taint, so to speak. And I say, no, screw that. Let's just promote ourselves as an entity where you want to live and you want to work and you want to have your business and you want to live and work and go to church in the Westplex.
I get, Brad, I get exactly what you're saying. So first of all, for those just tuning in, Brad has talked about both a Golden Triangle, which many of us have been seeking for years, and also a taint. So there we go. Secondly, Brad, I agree, and we haven't talked about this topic in months, but if you purchase a home or you choose to live somewhere in the Westplex, you have made a conscious decision as an adult to not live in St. Louis City, to not live in North St. Louis County. You do not want to be associated, by and large, with the problems of an urban community, which is why you moved to Troy, which is why Troy's a little bit north of here, but you get what I'm saying, Brad. You move to O'Fallon or you move to Newtown because you don't want to be around the crime, you don't want to be around the nonsense, you don't want to be around the BS. And with all due respect to the Mike Elam's of the world, we don't want to be, when you buy a house in a safe area, it's because you're trying to get away from it. The great member of the Lunatics named Murphy Lee, Brad, in his song Bougetto, he said, I moved right out the hood because I don't like the hood. I tell my people to think twice in the hood. You move out of North County or North City because you don't want to be around it anymore, Brad.
Well, but see, once again, this is human nature. I mean, you know, you go back to how this country was founded. A bunch of people that didn't like the way things were run in England. They came over to the United States. They're colonists, whatever you want to call them, and we call them our founding fathers, the people that actually, you know, put their signature on a document, the Declaration of Independence. And think about for a minute, if we would have lost the Revolutionary War, most of those people would have been hung, you know? I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
I mean, they put their life on the line. Okay, so once again, and here's the interesting thing that I always find fascinating. When people talk about St. Louis, the gateway city, okay? What does that mean? Do you really understand what gateway they're talking about? Do you understand that, John?
I don't know. I always thought it was the gateway to the West.
Hey, but think about that for a minute, and just exactly what you said. What does that mean, gateway to the West?
Well, gateway to freedom. People came here because they wanted to get on the other side of the river. They wanted to get their 40 acres not 40 acres and a mule. That's a slave thing. But they wanted to expand. It's manifest destiny. That's why they went west.
They thought there was promise in an area that was not, you know, inhabited that much, that they could, like you say, stake a claim. And the idea being that what happened was all these settlers from primarily the East and sometimes from other countries as well too came to the United States. They came to St. Louis, and the big business was outfitters. They sold them you know wagons, and that's what we call the city. Matter of fact, I can go over, and matter of fact, if you want, I can take a picture of this today. I know exactly where it's at. There is a marker on the eastern edge of the city of Overland that pays tribute to the Overland Trail. And that was what happened. People came to St. Louis. They came on the riverfront. They got their, you know, provisions, whatever you want to call it. They got their stuff. And what did they do? They headed west. And some of them ended up in Columbia, some of them in Kansas City, some of them in points west. But my point always being was, think about this for a minute. Once you left the quote-unquote city of St. Louis at the time, which was very, 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 very small. St. Charles County, probably back in that area, probably had, I don't know, 5,000 people lived in St. Charles County. Same, you know, Warren Warren County probably had 300 people or something like that lived there. But once you left the city of St. Louis, you were on your own. There was no cell phone where you could dial 911. The Indians attacked you. The robbers attacked you. Jesse James, you know, came and stole your money. You know, all the kind of things that happened. And people took risks. That was what it was about. But why did they take the risks? They were looking for a better life.
And great gain. So let's bring this back to the Ellman thing. You were making a point. I think I interrupted you about the Steve Ellman thing.
I think it's almost like, and I hate to put Steve Ellman in the same situation as I'm talking about the Hamas people. You can't negotiate with the city of St. Louis. I mean, you're not going to negotiate with, unless if Tashara Jones, you know, came out this morning and said, you know what, my good friend Steve Ellman from St. Charles County, he's got a point. And you know what? He pushes the fact that Steve Ellman's big thing is that he says where people want to live is where they have safety, they have a good police protection, and they have a good educational system. You know what? I'll admit, the city of St. Louis doesn't have the great police protection it should have, and our educational system is subpar. So for the rest of my tenure as mayor of St. Louis, I'm going to bust my butt to make this city the safest. I'm going to say, how many police do we have on the street right now? We have 900. We need 3,000 police officers. And what we're going to do is we're going to go in the city schools and we're going to figure out, we're going to take our Rams money that we've got and we're going to go in the city and we're going to say, hey, we want the best teachers in the country. Best teachers in the country. You complain about you don't have any money, you're not making money as education. We're going to pay tenured teachers starting salary, $250,000 a year. You have to come here to St. Louis. You have to move into the city. And we're going to make this city change. We're going to make it great. We're going to make it great again. I don't want to sound like Trump. I'm Tashar Jarn. She doesn't want to sound like Trump. I don't want to sound like Trump. We want to make the city great again. Police protection, education, and then we're off to the races. But she'll never do that. I mean, right. once again, they have this stupid thing where they paid some PR agency to do the remember the survey? They say, what do you think we should spend the Rams money on? And remember, public safety or police protection wasn't even on the list. You know,
but Brad, also, so in real time, I've just added a link to this on johncombest.com today. And as always, if you don't want to pay the Post-Dispatch subscription fee, I have a paywall-free link here that goes about the back and forth between Steve Ehlmann and Tashara Jones. And Tashara Jones said to Steve Ehlmann about the police, she said, talking about police officers, maybe if St. Charles stopped poaching them, we wouldn't lose as many officers.
I'm glad you brought that up. And I'm thinking to myself, I mean, I'm going like, what a lame excuse that is. Okay, if you're a police officer and you're working for the city of St. Louis, where obviously the management of the city, being the mayor and other entities, don't really have the police's back, but yet you can drive across the river and go into St. Charles County and work for St. Charles County Police Department or any of the other munis or the sheriff's department, stuff like that, where 95% of the time your whatever your government structure is, if it's the county, if you're a county police officer or muni, they got your back.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you 100%. Now, Brad, the way that I look at it, and I see your point about your counsel to Steve Ehlmann would be, listen, you can't negotiate with Hamas. And I get that point. The way that I read this, and the way that I've read it from the beginning when conversations about this were happening, or at least hitting news media, is that Ehlmann's goal, I think, is that whatever happens is going to happen, and his goal is to make it less bad. In other words, the Tashara plan's not going to work, but what can we do to make it less bad? And I think any of us who've been, I think back to time in corporate life, when you see a big corporate initiative that you know is going to fail, at least you think, what could I do to make it less bad for me and my people?
I get you, but I, once again, I mean, there's some things that no matter how much we talk and no matter how many committees we put together, things are not going to change. And that's just one of those crazy things. What's the old the Serenity Prayer? What's God?
Yeah, give me the strength to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Exactly. That's it. Okay, changing topics. Something we have never talked about in this show. The Walt Disney World situation in Florida with DeSantis. You know what I'm talking about?
What's the latest with it?
Okay.
I know there's a proxy fight going on. That's the only news I've seen. I haven't read about anything with DeSantis.
Okay, little history. When they built Walt Disney World, and you got to understand there's a couple interesting aspects of Walt Disney was doing this. Walt once, when he built Walt Disney Disneyland, his biggest regret was that he didn't buy enough property to protect himself from the outside world. So in other words, he built this great big place, and he lamented the fact that then all these little crappy little cheap hotels and everything built up right next to Disneyland because he didn't own the property. Secretly, when they decided to do Disney World, they've hired a bunch of real estate people to essentially buy parcels of land, but secretly not tell everybody what they're doing. Sort of like what was Paul McKee did in North City.
Oh, yeah,
where
okay.
They started buying up North City, and nobody knew who it was, but somebody kept buying all the houses and things like that. So that's what they did in Florida. They bought all this property up, and then once they had this massive area of property, they said, okay, then they announced, we're going to build this new place called Disney World, and it's going to be much better than Disneyland. We're going to have this thing called Epcot and blah, 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 blah. They set themselves up as their own city called the Reedy Creek, I think it was called the Reedy Creek Preservation District or something like that, where essentially Disney World, the Disney Corporation, ran their own city. They had their own, they could do whatever they want. It would be like, let's say you were really rich.
If Crapville was a real place.
Right. You could say, I'm the mayor of Crapville, and I'm going to hire my own police officer, and I could drive through Crapville at 120 miles an hour, naked, hanging out my rear window, with hookers in the backseat, and the police aren't going to...
searching for the golden triangle.
Right. The police aren't going to arrest me, but if you drive 5 miles an hour over the speed limit in Crapville, you're going to get a ticket. Okay, so the fight began when when they turned the Don't Say Gay bill, the whole crazy thing in Florida. And essentially, DeSantis says, okay, you guys want to come after me? I'm going to essentially take away your Reedy Creek Improvement District because you guys have your own little fiefdom where you can call the old rules. They came to a agreement where essentially it's like some new organization called like the Central Florida Tourist. I didn't look it up. I should have it here in front of me. I'm being a bad talk show host. But essentially they signed off on it, and Disney no longer has the control of their area like they once did. And once again, I'm sort of a less government kind of guy, but by the same token, I understand that if you have, like, let's say for this, let's take a county, let's say Warren County. Let's say Warren County decides, hey, we're going to, some rich guy, let's say Trump goes in and says, I'm going to buy everything in Warren County. I'm going to buy every house in Warren County. I'm going to own everything in Warren County. I'm going to own all the politicians. They work for me. Pretty soon, Warren County may turn into not the place that we know and love today, if you know what I'm saying.
Right, I get it.
It could be where, let's say the guy is a bad dude and he's some international, drug dealer, and he decides that he's going to make Warren County into the drug mecca of the world, and he's going to have prostitution, he's going to have all sorts of crazy stuff, and marijuana. Hey, we got cocaine. You want heroin? Come to Warren County.
Or he wants to buy up all the land and make it a brand new place for wineries, Brad, because that'll work. That's going to work, Brad. We're going to change everything. We're going to make Emmaus Homes into a big resort place, right? Am I supposed to talk about those plans over the air?
John.
And then we'll just sell it off in a few years, because who gives a heck about Franklin County?
No. Most of it's St. Charles County, but
St. Charles County. You're right. It is St. Charles County.
But
John Lamping will correct us. John will text me and correct me on that.
Right, and once again, I have to tell you that the other day I went through. It's funny. I was listening to one of our former shows that came on the air the other day, and we were talking about Klondike Park, and I didn't tell you the story.
Yeah.
I drove through Klondike Park. I saw no one. There was nobody in the park.
You know what, though? Lamping's going to remind us to stop talking about it. He doesn't want people flocking out there,
right.
Brad.
He wants it as his own private park where he can walk his dog, right? That's what he
Yeah.
wants. Okay, we're out of here. Say goodbye, John.
See you guys tomorrow.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?